Hey guys, Kyle here. So, just before the show starts, I wanted to mention our Patreon. You can pay us $1 a month as a thank you, as a tip. You can pay $2 a month to get access to one of our bonus content shows, episodes 2 days early, and a secret Discord chat where all of our Patreon donors get to go and hang out and talk with us directly. Then there's a $5 tier that you can donate to get access to a whole bunch more content. We have multiple bonus episodes on there. So please check it out. Patreon.com/itgetsweird. We don't advertise, we don't make money. So check it out and throw us some money if you think that would be cool. Thanks.
Welcome to It Gets Weird, our comedy show where we explore the unusual, the unbelievable, and the unexplained to try to make your world a little weirder. I'm Nile.
And I'm Kyle. And listeners, this week, I've been I do a lot of the management of like the email and the messages that we get, like not that Nile doesn't check, but I tend to look at it a little more.
You're the first line of defense. Yeah.
And this isn't, I hope you don't mind me saying that, Nile, because, that's just how this goes, that's just how our relationship goes with, messages and social media. And the podcast tweet inbox, the Gmail, the Facebook. I mean, we are getting flooded with messages, and they're all asking the same thing. And Niall, we try to remain politically neutral on this conspiracy podcast, as you know.
Do we?
So it's like difficult to like have to plant a flag here, but like we're kind of like the last bastion before a major decision is made, and people have been fucking they've been asking for our decision. So I figured, what better place to announce the decision? You can hear it first on Friday for $2 or $5 at our Patreon.
I can't wait. I can't wait to hear what kind of decision this is.
And then
I'm
Sunday,
sure it's momentous.
Yeah, on Sunday, you can hear the official decision when the episode goes live. So it brings me no joy to say this, but It Gets Weird is officially asking Joe Biden to step down as the nominee and kind of let Kamala girl boss her way in there a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
So
I do think that it's for the best. Both as a joke and also kind of in real life. The fucking look. Every time I see a new video of like any person running for president right now, I just kind of want to die.
Super cool.
And it's so frankly, yeah, fucking replace it. Let's go.
Yeah. Well, we were, like I said, they were waiting.
We were
on
in
us.
charge. Yes.
And as things move forward, I kind of was talking to Kamala on the side, and she was like, we're looking to have more and more podcasts sort of be the like political deciders, sort of a secondary electoral college.
I've heard Cumtown got to like veto a Supreme Court justice. So I think that honestly it's the best way forward for America. It's and like you get a lot of like local true crime podcasts being involved in like local cabinet boards and stuff. So I think honestly we're moving away from democracy and into a kind of podcast. Podocracy, which is not to be confused with probably a lot of really funny pun named political podcasts out there.
Yeah. Here's how Nile is a professional and I'm not. Is like Nile delivered the Cumtown thing without breaking, and I've been giggling at my own stupid fucking bit for the past 5 minutes. So that's just how it is on this show, I guess.
That's the dynamic that makes this sizzle, Kyle.
Right.
Like no one can tell if I'm making a joke at any given time, and you can't make a joke without laughing halfway through.
Yeah, no, that's true.
That's the dynamic.
It's true. I mean, here's the thing though: if you're gonna know Nile's telling a joke because I'll laugh, that's the signal.
Yeah.
So,
and if you don't laugh, then it wasn't a joke, and it was never intended to be.
Well, maybe not. I feel like I've gotten a pretty good read on your humor over the years, although you've definitely gotten me a couple times in the last couple years where I just was like, oh my God, is Nile being serious right now?
My favorite of which was when there was a we were driving around when we were at Ball State, and there was some sort of like, I don't know, full campus like Nerf gun war type thing, or like dodgeball. And there was like some police squad got called on somebody because they were like lurking around a public building and yada yada yada. And I for a second I convinced Kyle that the rules of the game involve you to have at least one kill. That like you get one kill without really getting arrested, it's like okay, and you kind of get swept under the rug. But after that, you will get in trouble.
I wish I had a better memory than I do, because I remember this, but I can't truly believe that I was convinced that people were just, killing people on campus for a game.
I think you were hesitant, but there was a second where you're like, is Nile kidding?
Yeah. You got that deadpan delivery down, and you can just sort of say stuff without ever showing.
I come by it honestly.
How funny it is.
Comes from my mom's side of the family. They're all deadpan motherfuckers.
It's true, but having met your mom, and I'm so sorry, Luann, right?
Nope.
Who am I thinking of?
But we're gonna put that on the podcast for now. That's her podcast name. You're off by just a little bit.
Oh no, I forgot your mom's name.
No,
I'm so sorry, Luann. Is kind of what I was leading to
on
there.
The podcast. Yeah.
Oh no. I hope she never hears this. I know your mom's name.
Listen. My dad listens to 10 minutes of an episode once in a while, and that's it.
That's probably for the best.
Yeah, I never push them on it because I'm not sure I really want them to hear the entirety of any of these episodes.
Yeah, I will get asked by family members about the podcast, and I'll be like, yeah, I'm still doing that. And they'll be like, "Oh, how's it going? What's it called? Where do I listen? Can you get it on Spotify?"
Oh, it's
and I'll just be
you
like,
have to pay. Look, don't worry about it. It's really complicated to get a hold of it. You don't need to worry about it.
I'll be like, "Yeah, it's on. I don't know. We're exclusively on Pornhub." Which
yeah,
that's a problem if they decide to follow up on that.
Yeah, if they're going to start really searching through the archives there and see what they find.
Yeah. So that was the opening bit of the podcast.
Yeah.
We have an email that I would like to read. Speaking of politically neutral. So I'm not going to...
I love the lack of context here. Let's go. What's this email got for us?
So we got an email that... said, I actually don't want to give this person's name out, which you'll understand why in a minute, but I believe this was in response to my series of episodes on the alien deception.
Okay.
So they sent an email. This person sent an email that says, I'm going to call him A. A sent an email that said, I'm only through part 2, but please tell me you guys know of or mention South Park's absolutely roasting Suzanne Somers on the 700 Club with the Starvin' Marvin episodes. The second Starvin' Marvin episode is the relevant one, but both are absolutely hilarious. Here's some clips of the second episode. And then they follow that up to say that, P.S., I got reelected this past spring for our local area. No matter what you think about the top of the ticket, there are primaries coming up. I know at least one Republican running as a Democrat. What the fuck? In a primary race in order to remove an incumbent civil servant. Oh boy. So do what you will this fall, but until then, vote as often as you're able in these smaller races. Hey, that's a fair message. So I didn't want to give this person's even their first name out just because
we don't want to, while we joke about it, I'm not sure how good it would be for an active public official to be touting our podcast.
Maybe not. Well, yeah, I guess not. Or people looking them up, whatever. But
yeah.
2A. I probably watched this back in the day. I have a contentious relationship with South Park that I don't know if I've explained it on the podcast before, but let me put it this way. Growing up in southern Indiana, being named Kyle and being Jewish was fucking hell on earth.
Yeah, you literally didn't. No one need to write jokes because they were broadcast into your homes 24/7 on South Park.
Here's the thing: the joke of characters like Cartman. To a sophisticated, intelligent person like me, I understand the joke is that Cartman is a terrible person. In high school, people were just like into the joke of calling someone a Jew or somebody's mom a dumb fat bitch. And I can't. I have made peace with the South Park thing now, but like for a long time, I was like, fuck this show, fuck everybody who loves it. Yeah. So, and I'm not saying that now. And frankly,
it was, you have a very specific reason that it was very frustrating to you personally.
Awful. And like Southern Indiana high school kids are the worst people on earth. So it was just terrible. But I must say, watching this clip now, I'm like, the show has its moments, I think, and then other times I find it kind of grating in a not so funny way. But this clip is definitely making fun of the 700 Club and all that, and Suzanne Summers. But the thing that I thought was really incredible about this clip is they are like, in the episode, I guess the 700 Club like joke people are have made contact with like an alien planet, and they need to shoot down aliens or something. And so they like make a joke about Orgon blasters straight up.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. I have not watched an episode of South Park since before this podcast aired, before this podcast debuted.
Yeah.
So I watched probably, back in high school and college when my free time was basically just reading music blogs and watching stuff on Netflix on loop.
Yeah.
I watched like the first, I watched up through about when the last thing I saw was probably the like Cthulhu thing where they were superheroes. And that was when I was vaguely watching. Yeah. So
yeah, I think my favorite thing about like the Matt Stone and Trey Parker, I can't believe I pulled their names not your mom's.
Yeah.
Fuck, Luann is the mom on King of the Hill. Fuck.
You're close.
Oh my God, what is wrong with my brain? Yeah. Anyways, what I really love about the Matt Stone and Trey Parker sort of brand of comedy is their ability to stay, politically neutral and really just rake, both left and right over the coals.
You see, Kyle, they make fun of everyone
equally,
yeah,
and that's what's so amazing about is just not taking a stance. No, it's really incredible.
Really, to me, the peak of their creative careers is now. I also have not watched this movie in a while, but it was.
I know what you're about to say.
Deep fondness for it for a while. The movie Basketball.
Yeah.
So I do need to rewatch that one.
Yeah. Like
I straight up subjected my parents watched it with me the first time.
Oh my God.
I don't know why. My dad thought it was hilarious, so that was great. And then it literally played on TV, the same channel again the next night, and my dad and I watched it again, and my mom left the room.
I mean, like, I like a stupid, silly movie, but like 2 nights in a row, that's
I'm not saying it was a good decision. I also at some point in my life have watched the entirety of Entourage. I don't always make good media decisions.
Yeah.
But I have some fondness for random parts of early South Park,
sure.
and Basketball, and also to a degree Orgasmo. I think their movies are kind of fun.
I can't remember which ones I've seen, but yeah. I feel like I watched Basketball with you. Anyways, thank you for the email.
Yeah, thank you.
I guess we got to get into part 2 of Love and Light research. And this whole clown fest. I'm sorry, that's not nice, but that's
look, I really struggle because there are topics that we cover where the people are just obviously grifters that are trying to push something, and like,
but
they're so vindictive and like malicious. This one is.
You said like, it doesn't feel like a grift, right? Like,
it feels like a thing that they truly believe and like think is going to help people, and they give away a lot of their stuff for free, even though they do sell physical copies as well, which I think is fine. Like but they also do have some. Look, if you dig into the law of Ra, if you dig into the raw material and the law of one, you will find that the aliens are not the most LGBTQ friendly or, those kinds of things. So they also do have their problems. I'm not trying to make these people out as like some saintly thing. They're not that. But anyway, that's kind of my weird disclaimer about this when we start, because the thing about this is I just find the dynamics of what we're going to talk about today very fascinating, because you will find out why. Because we're going to talk about their summoning rituals. We're going to talk about the book they wrote that they claim was somewhat prophetic of their lives, but they had to write an ending to their story at the before it ever started. So that's fascinating to me. And then a couple other kind of things to fill in what we didn't get to cover last week.
So kind of working backwards with that material then.
It's a really interesting story that we'll get into. So just to give a brief recap here, let's set the stage a little bit for those that haven't, it's been a week since you heard the first thing. So largely we're talking about the works of Don Elkins and Carla Rueckert and Jim McCarty, who are also known as the Love and Light Research, or L&L Research. They are responsible for what's known as the raw material or law of one, which is kind of a belief system that's pulling on a lot of New Age tropes and that kind of like Christianity with extra steps stuff, but is coming about through channeling these alien beings called Ra. So all of this stuff is directly supposedly from alien beings who are being channeled through Carla and written down by this trio, and then edited and put out as books that are that are a cosmic belief system called the Law of One.
Can I just throw something out there? Because
yes.
I had some people who listened to that part one in our Discord, like saying,
really good discussion in the Discord about part one.
Genuinely. I mean, this is I love the Discord, because we have people in there who are very well read on certain subjects, and we miss stuff, and people have shown us interesting stuff that we may miss. But they did bring up how, like, when we were talking about ascending through the density system or whatever, and how there's like a light and a dark version of that. There's like the service to self and the service to others, right?
Yeah, the thing that you're 100% right. You have the service to others and selfish service to self is kind of the dichotomy of the whole thing. They call it polarity, and it's kind of you either have to be 51% good to be in positive alignment, or you have to be 95% bad to be in negative alignment. Otherwise, you're in the chasm of indifference, which is like my second favorite term of this entire series.
Yeah, and we determined that Genghis Khan is at least over 95% negative, right?
Seems to be, yeah, because he's now like a middle manager in the Orion fucking sixth density circle.
And the Orions were like the bad guys. That was
correct.
Like the evil.
They're your Draconians.
Entities.
They're your all of your like evil alien races.
Okay. So what I wanted to just address is people were saying like, we're bringing up my whole thing of like, what's the incentive to like do the light work, the service to others thing. Mm-hmm. And what I meant by that, I understand why this was like brought up by people, because it's like, well, you do good things because it's good, right? I get that. What I should have phrased it a little differently, because what I mean is like, typically in these systems, there is a reason you are given, like when you're talking about New Age, religious, spiritual movement things that talk about, heightening consciousness or whatever, even starseed stuff. It's like, usually there is something that feels like an incentive to elevate the good version of the like density ascending, whereas here it's like, it just feels like they're saying like, well, okay, also like morality, like human morality affects your ascension, which maybe makes more sense. So the question that I was trying to like maybe get at was like, you know, normally it's like, oh well, you escape the matrix.
You're used to escaping the matrix or getting to heaven versus being punished for doing the bad thing.
Right. Whereas here, it kind of feels like neither the service to self or service to others, regardless of where you land on the dichotomy, you remain in this, like, I don't know, cycle, no matter what you do, is kind of what it sounds like to me.
It's you're not far off. Like there is a sense of, like, almost, to me, this is my read of it because of the way that I view things and everything. There is almost this sense of futility that's inherent to this thing, because you're talking about everything is circular. Everything, and whether you're good or you're evil, you're still kind of going after, like, if you're going down that negative polarity, you can kind of be selfish, but you're still part of the one, so serving yourself is still serving the one. So, like, there is, and when you ascend to the seventh density, then you get to the eighth one and it just resets into a new octave. And is that octave any different? They don't really, like, there is this sense of, like, futility to it that I think is kind of what you're getting at here, where it's like, what other than just the idea that good things are good is driving people down either of these paths, because there's not really reward, or unless you think of just, like, going up in density, but then, like, so like the rewards and punishment system is kind of lacking.
To further clarify, I do think you should do things because they're good. You should do good things because they're good, definitely. So I wasn't calling that into question necessarily. I was more asking.
You're just asking, what do you get out of it?
Yeah, what's their? Yeah, exactly.
If I'm gonna do all this good shit for people, what am I? I
did all this good shit for nothing, man. I don't even get to go to heaven.
I just get a new fucking octave of density.
Oh my god, what's the fucking point? I'm about to go join Genghis Khan.
Yeah,
the Orions are gonna hook me up with some.
At least he's got a steady gig.
Yeah, seriously.
All right, so just to give a brief rundown of the timeline we've gotten so far, all of this starts in the 70s. Basically, Don starts to do some exploration into extraterrestrials and UFOs in the 60s, starts to learn how to channel, and then when you get to about 1970 is when L&L starts, and then they do the actual raw channelings over between 81 and 84. So they're already around for quite some time before they do the actual raw stuff that they then become pretty famous for. And that's like the raw stuff is going to be most of what we talk about, because they do summon some other people, or they channel some other people. They have these other, like, supposedly they've channeled like Jesus and God. And so I'm kind of curious to read what those are like. When and how, like, they would use that to, like, try to weave in Law of One stuff, and like, so what I'm saying is, eventually we very well could revisit L&L research,
sure.
But for today, we're going to mainly focus on the raw stuff and their kind of initial trios action of Carla, Don, and Jim. So I want to start just with kind of going over some of the kind of beliefs that we didn't cover in depth last time. I mentioned a bit of the kind of the two main factions involved here are the Confederation of Planets, quote, in service to the one infinite creator. And the funny thing is, I see that shortened in like 4 different ways, depending on where you look. Some people call it the Confederation. Some people call it the Confederation of Planets. Then some people call it the Confederation, and in parentheses, of planets in service to the one creator. And then other people call it the Confederation of Planets, in parentheses, in service. Like, no one, I feel like I don't know what the official name of this thing is, because everyone, like, kind of says it differently.
Own, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like, him, Yahweh.
Yeah.
And all that shit. What are there's other Adonai.
The 3-in-1.
Yeah.
So the Confederation of Planets is a group consisting of approximately 53 civilizations. along with about 500 planetary consciousnesses, along with various entities from Earth's inner planes and graduates from Earth's third density. So once you get past the third density, I guess that's what you might be able to get in. If you want a perk, if you graduate past the third density, you can join the Confederation of Planets and or probably Orion as well. So you can kind of pick your path there and get your like, it's kind of like getting to like third level in D&D where you get kind of like your class.
You get to pick your class features. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. So basically the thing that kind of unites the Confederation of Planets is serving the law of one, serving the one consciousness in general, the creator. A lot of their other stuff is pretty disparate. Like they don't all truly get along completely other than in service to this creator. So that's kind of what unites everybody. And they are even in this. Okay, this is a thing that I find that I've been trying to kind of crack for a long time, is trying to figure out when I'm looking at like the law of one belief system, or I'm looking at other similar kind of new agey ones that have these galactic kind of civilizations and stuff. Do these federations know each other? Like, do like, are there multiple fucking galactic societies that are all like interacting with each other, or are they all kind of claiming different things to be the one, you know?
I mean, if Star Trek taught me anything, it's that a lot of them do know each other, but then there's always these sort of rogue entities as well. So I guess that's probably not unique to Star Trek, but like that's kind of how I always envision it, is like I would imagine the Orion group, which is still a bit of a nebulous thing to me.
We'll talk about them more in a second here.
Like,
clear that up for you.
As the evil group, I would assume that they operate a bit more clandestinely and less interaction with the other, planets and galaxies or whatever. But what do I know?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, it's so we'll talk about them a little bit, but here, the thing, they do actually recognize that there are other confederations in here. So the Confederation of Planets does recognize that there are many others in the galaxy. Now they don't list them, but like I'm curious if they specifically ever call out is the Galactic Confederation of Light like one of the ones that they recognize? I'm gonna have to dig in and see if I can find that for my own personal I guess interest.
Do you know how much it would fucking suck to find out aliens exist, but like they're just actually straight up doing like Star Wars Episode 1 shit up there? It's like, oh yeah, there's a trade blockade. Really? We're doing this?
Yeah, they all have like the hover platforms and are just like all hanging out in a big galactic fucking conference room.
And they're all doing weird racist accents.
Yeah.
It'd be terrible. It'd be the worst possible version of aliens.
It would, I mean, yeah, because if aliens have as boring a bureaucracy as we do, then they've fucked up also.
It's all fucked.
So Orion is, they are headquartered in a constellation on the kind of, they say the equator east of Taurus. So they're calling this out by sky chart for whatever reason. So basically, if you look in the sky to the east of where Taurus's like belt and sword are, that's where they come from. But the Raw Contact describes them as an empire of entities and social memory complexes, which is what Raws are. Ra is a social memory complex. So that's like an ascended being that doesn't have as much of a physical form, who have chosen the negative path, whereas the Confederation of Planets is organized as a confederation of alliances which share power and service on the basis of the oneness of all things. The Orion Group organizes itself on the basis of power against power, establishing a pecking order with the more powerful controlling the less powerful. So then it basically goes on to say, the Confederation preaches unity, they preach singularity and all that shit. So really they are just painted as like conquistador, kind of like they're just trying to go across the galaxy and take over everything and take over power and consolidate power and set up basically a fucking hierarchy of power in the entire galaxy.
Okay. So they're trying to assimilate other planets?
like halfway, kind of, yeah. Like they're trying to go and spread selfishness across the entire galaxy, so none of us work together for the good of everybody.
Okay. Can I point out something a little awkward about that idea?
Okay.
Doesn't everybody include them?
Yeah.
So like, this is these things always boil down to like these people are trying to like form a all-encompassing teleology that just fails completely.
Well, see, that's actually baked into this, because here's from the end of how Ra describes them.
Oh shit.
Due to the problems inherent in pitting power against power, spiritual entropy causes them to experience constant disintegration of their social memory complexes. Thus, their numbers are perhaps 1/10 of the Confederation's at any point. So this is they are like committed to a losing strategy.
Okay, I see.
And I
saw me coming.
Yeah, they thought about that. Sure. Now, this is another thing that as I was kind of going back over things, I was finding. I would eventually be very curious to look into this, because there are like 3 different versions of the Law of One texts that exist. There's like the original ones, which were released like in between like 85 and 87 or something like that. And then they've done both like one that was called like the slightly edited version, and then there's one called the revised edition.
Slightly edited is not an elegant subtitle.
No, and I think that was used for one of those was used for a book called like Teaching the Law of One, which is kind of the current, if you were to try to get just like what they consider their current best version of the teachings, you would probably get this. It's kind of a slightly streamlined with like some Carla before her death was working to try to basically take a lot of the stuff where Don gets a little in the weeds scientific, talking like basically she tried to dumb it down a little bit to broaden the appeal and make the message of it a little easier to get and make it a little more accessible. So that's like a lot of the stuff that you'll find now. Now you can find the original texts. Most of my stuff comes from like a lot. There's the forewords to these things are so interesting to read, because it's just them like stream of consciousness writing about whatever they want to about how it's. So like when I got like the special little boy stories from forewords, I got the stuff about how they channeled from the forewords. Like that's where you want to go if you want to find some shit.
The original material. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So, the last kind of big concept that I forget if we covered really that much in the last one is the concept of the harvest. Now, I know we talked about at the end of these cycles. So, another part of the density cycling thing is that all of the densities last for this predetermined length of time, which is approximately 75,000 years. Now, there's some wiggle room with that because of how the upper level consciousnesses view time. And so when it was supposed to be the end of one of those periods in 2011 and it didn't happen, they, it's coming kind of thing. But the harvest is effectively their almost apocalypse. It's when the cycle resets and everyone kind of and everyone who has ascended, who has been good enough to get to the next density, gets to go to graduate into that density. So you don't do it immediately. It's all you graduate when the harvest happens at the end of those 75,000 year periods.
Okay, so
which yet again makes it very interesting to try to deal with the human lifetime.
Yeah,
in that.
Yeah, like I mean, I sort of recall one of my questions being about like how they fit the problem of like death in there, like human death. Like it's just, so I don't know that again, my whole thing was that it seems like they're hinting at an eternal soul of some kind for humans, maybe. Because otherwise this cycle seems completely pointless. Like we wouldn't even notice ever. It's just like arbitrarily some random population of Earth at one point in time gets to, elevate or oh god, degrade, I guess.
Disintegrate, yeah.
Disintegrate. Like it's I don't know. But it's just so apocalypse, like when you use that term, what do you mean?
I really should have probably said rapture, because it's effectively their rapture, where the world doesn't end, the cycle just comes to an end, and anyone that can goes up or down.
Why 75,000 years?
I don't know why. It all of that comes from Ra, and I'm sure that there's some, if you were to read all like 116 or 106 of the channeling sessions, there might be some details about like how that's some timeline of the cosmic wavelength of the, like there's probably something that justifies it, but I truly don't know what that is.
Also, total side thing, but like after we recorded the first episode, I did go to Love and Light Research's website just to look at it and see what it was like. And they have like a current lineup of like lead members.
Yeah,
and
it's still active.
They all look like camp counselors.
Because they literally like it's on, as far as I'm aware, it's on like a nature. It's like,
sure,
because the guy Jim did a lot of stuff with like sustainability and kind of off the grid living kind of.
Oh man,
when he got roped into all of this, so they set up a lot of those facilities on his land.
I really at some point need to experience what a group like this does to like self-sustain their weird lifestyle. Like,
Kyle, have you seen where they will show you how they funnel, how they deal with donations and funds?
Oh no, I didn't.
Fund themselves.
I did
There's
not.
There's a whole
see
section
that.
of the website that will break down the money that they take in and stuff.
Oh my god! So they're making like a pretty good amount of money off of this.
I didn't dig too far into that because it's more current than what I was talking about. But when I check into when I do the modern day L&L research episode, we might do a breakdown of their finances.
We just like, when I hear that there's like people who like are like a team of like 6 people who like work out of this like nature area, who like can just like run seminars about Ra for a living, I'm just kind of dumbfounded that it is sustainable.
Yeah.
And I again turn to like, man, like grifting and like being a cult leader, that must be the easiest job in the world. I mean, I guess that's what podcasting is, right? Being like a cult leader, sort of like you have like legion of mindless followers.
As long as you don't ask them to do anything too specific,
sure.
you can feel like you're, we're getting people to talk about a thing. That's like a cult thing.
It's sort of like a cult without all the like bad stuff.
It's a cult with the pressure off.
Right.
So let's dig into maybe the thing I'm most interested in this entire topipic.
Ooh,
and that is the novel entitled "The Crucifixion of Esmerelda Sweeetwater."
You mentioned this. I made a point not to look at this because when I checked out the website, I was looking at the bios of like the original founders, and it mentioned this, and I was like, I'm not going to read anything about this.
Yeah.
So now I'm curious.
This was a novel that, if the stories are to be believed, was originally written in 1967 by Don Elkins and Carla Rueckert. However, due to lack of interest from publishers, it was not then published until near the time of Don's death. So it eventually saw some level of publication, I think through one of their own publishing arm. So I think it ended up being kind of self-published in 1985 or 1986, depending on where you look for that date. But what is interesting about this to me is, if they wrote this in 1967, the Ra summonings and the Ra channeling stuff was 81 to 84. Jim McCarty was not involved in this at all yet. They hadn't founded L&L. Like, this was if the timeline is correct, which I caveat that heavily because it didn't actually see the light of day until 85 or 86, which would change the tenor of a lot of this pretty heavily. But it is effectively a novel that loosely is borderline biographical, but of stuff that hadn't happened in 1967. The characters that like Carla, Don, and Jim all have analogs in this book. And the book ends with the death of one of the three of them and this to save the world. Now, that is and the decision to end the book that way, I have information on the discussion and how it works, because the thing about this book is that it was supposedly written in almost, 67 is when he was just starting to get into channeling, so they didn't full on call it this, but they say, let me find where I have this written specifically. Here it is. So this is directly from their website and how they describe this. The writing of the book came easily because they didn't have to conceive of the story or the characters. It came to them. They were able to see it playing out upon the inner stage of their blended minds. That's Don and Carla. It was more like taking dictation than writing. They draw from this shared vision in different complementing ways, with Carla's head resting in Don's lap. Don dictated the plot of the story into a cassette recorder. Carla, seeing the same story unfold in her own mind, then filled in the plot with character and dialogue. So they literally Marvel methoded this fucking book, supposedly through a shared vision of the future, or of this story, and wrote it stream of consciousness fucking style in 1967.
Interesting. But you're saying, though, that there is some question about when it was actually written.
Look, every place that I find says it was written in 1967. I don't have anything that actively says it was not. The only reason I bring that up enough is because it didn't officially get published until 1985, 86.
Yeah.
So because it didn't get published, the quote official story is due to lack of interest in publication, it was in a drawer for a long time. And it's convenient timing to have a prophetic novel about yourselves before you do the thing that then, like, because especially once they start channeling Ra, they ask Ra about stuff in the Crucifixion of Esmerelda Sweeetwater, and Ra like confirms plot points for them, like confirms that they got it right. And so if you think about that, that is Don, Carla, and Jim sitting in a room having Don ask Carla, hey, did that book that we wrote together get the events of this thing right? And Carla, in the voice of Ra, saying, yeah, you sure got that right. That's exactly how it went.
Oh my God.
And it is this this is just magical to me. The all of the stuff about this book is one of the most bold-faced, like, bluffs I have ever seen in a conspiracy in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And I am fascinated by it.
No,
it's
pretty interesting. Now, I'm just trying to situate the timeline here in my brain, because Jim, which one of them died? It was Don.
So Don died in 1987.
Okay.
He's self-inflicted. We'll talk about that a little bit.
Oh my God, we didn't even
get to that. Yeah, we have to talk about Don's suicide.
Oh my God.
So
that's hey, can I say that makes the book thing even weirder?
There's so many layers to this. I'm sorry if I end up repeating myself and having to like fill in a bunch, but
you're good.
This has just been living in my brain for 2 weeks.
I completely understand.
So, so the only part that they in the official story, the only part that wasn't just dictated to them by some cosmic energy is the ending. And this comes from there's an article on their website that talks about the writing of this book and stuff as kind of a historical looking back document. And here's what it says about the ending of this book, in which one of them dies and they save the world. When it came to the ending, they knew that at least one of the three major characters would have to die in order for the book to make sense, but they didn't get the same clear image for who would die as they had gotten for the rest of the book. Now, Raw did speak about this unique experience 13 years later, where...
I'm breaking out in a cold sweat, Nile. What's about to happen?
So, Raw, when the commitment was... This is from Raw, the Raw channelings. It's from Raw session 68, question 14, I think is how that works. They all have like a Bible. So it's Raw 68.14, which is how you find the specific passage you're looking for. Right. So you have to kind of think of it like, yeah. So when the commitment was made between the two of this group to work for the betterment of the planetary sphere, aka when Don and Carla got together to channel and write this book, this commitment activated a possibility/probability vortex of some strength. The experience of generating this volume was unusual in that it was visualized as if watching the moving picture. Time had become available in its present moment form. The scenario of the volume went smoothly until the ending of the volume. You could not end the volume, and the ending was not visualized as the entire body of the material, but was written or authored. This is due to the action of free will in all of the creation. So Ra left the ending up to them because free will is important. And
that's sort of ironic.
Now, when you're writing a book that is... Okay. Here's another incongruence that I have kind of had to grapple with throughout this, is because when you read stuff from when this book was written, they talk about it as if they didn't quite know that it was prophetic. It was a thing that was written in this thing, and it wasn't. They then, once they met a guy named Albert Puharich, I think.
Oh, I know that name.
Yep. He is a character in the book, the Crucifixion of Esmerelda. Andrija Puharich.
Oh my God. Yeah. Andrija Puharich. I don't know how to pronounce that last name, but I'm assuming you got some tidbits here, but like Puharich is the person who was like used as a citation by Uri Geller for his psychic abilities. And
as we know, Uri Geller and Don Elkins, buddies.
Right. Oh my God. Okay.
So Andrija Puharich is the character Pablo in the Crucifixion of Esmerelda Sweeetwater. They literally go... And here's the level to which this goes.
Yeah.
So they did not know this man, this person before the book was written. And when they went to Puharich's house, Carla remarked, like, they were seeing all the ways that the description in their book was exactly this person's house. And Carla remarked, but what happened to this specific flower that was out front? And he kind of looked at them weird and went, I dug those up 3 years ago. Like, supposedly she asked about a detail from the book.
Right.
And not knowing that it had been there when the book was written.
Further proof that the book is prophetic and
exactly.
Like, yeah, got it.
So even Jim, who was not around at the time, appears later on in the book and becomes part of the channeling stuff in the later portions of the book. So in Dr. Puharich is named Dr. Pablo Podajewski in the book, and he's one of the main characters. So in the kind of text of the canonized story of of this book being written and everything, Dr. Puharich is basically what made them realize how one-to-one with reality this book was. Peonies, that's what it was. He had peonies in his in his opening on his driveway, and it had ringed the edge of the driveway in the book, and they weren't there, and yada yada. So there are more similarities. There's a guy named Theodore Baer who was written as the third member of this channeling team and stuff in the later parts of the book. That ends up being Jim McCarty. Esmerelda Sweeetwater is, of course, Carla, and a guy named Joshua Starr is, I believe, Don Elkins. So you can... They also kind of dictate some rituals and stuff that would kind of... basically, their channeling rituals are in the form that they were supposedly in 1967 in this book. So they are a mix of meditation along with kind of almost like not black magic symbology. Because it's a candle, an incense in a holder, a chalice of water, and then Carla also uses her Bible. So it's like kind of
images of that on the website.
Yeah, so they use kind of these objects as anchors in the channeling sessions that are kind of representative of some different. That basically it mixes some Christian symbology with some magical symbology and also some just kind of meditation stuff. So they also use the banishing ritual of the lesser pentagram to kind of cleanse the room of any negative influences before they get started. And they changed a line of the kind of recitation they use when they were going to reference Yahweh, and they change it. They add another syllable to it, which basically shifts they change the name of God in their ritual because it fits better with what they're doing. Like,
sure,
they just do they do a bunch of weird shit that I don't fully understand. So basically, there's this black magician named Trostrick in the book who is effectively the stand-in for the selfish Orion type person, because he's basically trying to create these violent situations where people are magically forced to kill each other to promote his kind of beliefs and ends. This guy is one of the only things that doesn't directly link up with, like, I don't know if they thought they were going to have some op against them when they were doing the channelings when they wrote this, because they don't specifically have like a physical person nemesis in the actual real life story. So this guy, they just tried to explain away by saying that while they didn't receive that particular type of quote energization, they were monitored by a negatively oriented discarnate entity while doing all of their raw channelings. So that basically was what Tostrick was. You know?
They were being gang stalked by a 5D negative entity.
The other thing that happens a lot, okay. Let's get into the fucking ending, because this is the thing with it.
Oh boy.
They had to choose one of the main characters to fucking die.
I've been kind of holding back with bated breath on this particular tidbit. So
they had to make a decision, and this is from Carla's own words in an interview for a thing called Tilting at Windmills, which is kind of a recounting of the foundation of L&L. They named it. Like, that's what they call it.
It's also like funny because of you and a callback to like a year ago or something.
Yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good. So, it didn't make any sense. It wasn't logical, and we were both very logical people. Don was preternaturally healthy. His vision was 20/10. When he was in the army, he could run rings around his unit all day while he was running with them on a 10-mile hike and never run out of breath. He was just so healthy. He was incredibly healthy, never been sick. He'd never been sick. He'd never had a cold. I was very, very frail. There was no question about it. I accepted that much myself, although I didn't accept anything more. I was normal. It just took a little bit of skill to stay normal. There was this way, and that way I could screw up, and then I would be having a problem because of earlier sickness. Kidney problems, rheumatoid problems, that kind of thing. But just seeing that I wasn't long for this world, I was just frail. So it made sense that the person most like me in the book would die, whereas Don's character would not. And we worked with that, and worked with that, and worked with that, and that's the way we wrote it. The space girl, or Esmeralda, dies at the end. So they choose to kill off Esmeralda. And when they asked Ra about that ending, he basically says, free will. So we left the ending to you guys. But I like, there's that thing. There's the whole thing where it kind of feels like Carla gets short shrifted in a lot of the stuff when you're looking at these things.
Like maybe she's being a little bit used here.
Yeah. I can't say this for sure or anything because everyone talks about all of these people very warmly. But it just, it feels like Don wouldn't really see the version of the book where he dies in it, you know? Like
right.
that's how it feels from reading it.
You know, I've never heard of any of these like new agey, culty sort of groups having like parasitic personalities at the top of them. Yeah. So like, I can't really see that. I don't know. This Don guy sounds like a real stand-up dude, and I can't really see him pulling any kind of crap with her. And she probably wasn't shortchanged in any way.
Yeah, she probably, just chose not to write books by herself until after.
She probably loved that they wrote the prophetic book about her dying at the very end.
So, like, okay.
It's weird. That's weird stuff. It's like
there's an even weirder thing because we'll get into we'll talk a little bit about Don's death.
Don needs to kill himself
because there's kind of a morbid ending to some of the stuff with Esmerelda Sweeetwater around the time of Don's death because supposedly how it happened is Don had some mental health issues. He started to get very paranoid and very kind of just freaked out and convinced that he was going to die. Was just obsessed with this concept that his end was coming, and he even started to ask, I think, Jim and maybe Carla as well, if he could maybe try to do what his character in the book did, where he made a deal with Trostrick to try to save Esmeralda's life. So he like there's this looming question over Don Elkins' death of did he in his mind at the time logic into him killing himself somehow saved the life of someone else. He like saved Carla's life effectively. And that is like this just weird wrinkle to all of this that I do not know what to do with.
A little bad talking so much shit about Don. I mean, it's still weird though. Like this is all very, very strange. It almost reads like three personalities sort of leeching off each other in various ways. Like, I don't know what to make of it.
It's really like, I just find it fascinating. I don't know. Like, I can't morally judge any of these people since I never knew them. I just find this story so fascinating, and the dynamics of all of this are absurd and entertaining. So let's end by talking about how they actually did the damn thing.
What, killing himself? Or?
No.
Okay.
He did shoot himself.
Oh, okay. Thank you for clarifying.
So, yeah. And then Carla died of illness in 2015. Supposedly, Carla had a lot of health issues throughout her life, some of which she believes were exacerbated by these channeling sessions, where we'll describe what she went through in those here shortly. But suppose she had some battles with cancer and some other stuff throughout her life.
The third guy's still alive, though, right? Sorry.
Correct. Yeah. Yes. Okay. He is still involved with L&L as far as I'm aware.
Nice.
And also still kind of runs some like the blogs and stuff. So he's still around. So let's go ahead and get into the actual channeling, because I haven't seen this specific method before.
Okay.
So
usually it's like a person gets behind a podium on like a platform and like their eyes roll back and they speak in a slightly different voice, like is kind of the classic thing. But
so this is a procedure they call tuned trance telepathy. And so Ra described this contact as, quote, narrowband, which meant that it requires considerable focus and discipline to maintain the contact, and that the quality of information was of a much greater precision and depth than would be available through what they would call conscious channeling. And also it allowed them to kind of focus on more big concepts and philosophies as opposed to kind of minutia. Basically, it allowed them to be vague.
Sure.
So supposedly Ra chose Don, Carla, and Jim to be the main communication point because Don and Carla had been practicing and refining their process of channeling for quite some time. And when Jim kind of was added to that, it gave them the holy trinity of like the position. Like they have kind of a 3-person position where you have Carla as the channeler, Don is asking the questions, and Jim is writing it all down. So it's a 3-person operation that they need to do this method. They start, which I don't know when exactly they dropped, because when Don started, it was him and a group of 12 students, and a lot of his early channeling groups until he met Carla were based around like a larger group. And then when you get to these Ra channelings, it snaps down to the 3 of them. So I'm not entirely sure why that change happened. So, but these people were chosen because they were 3 seekers who had great effortless harmony. You know, that was what Ra says. So before each session, Jim would give Carla a half-hour back massage because she's going to have to remain absolutely motionless but for between an hour and 45 minutes. Then they would all meditate to kind of induce a state of harmony and to try to like unify their desires into getting contact with Ra. They then would perform a ritual of protection, which is what I think where they bring in like the banishing ritual and stuff from the Lesser Key of Solomon. And then Carla will lay down, be covered in a white sheet, and she starts to mentally recite the prayer of Saint Francis because this is one of the things they do point out is the ritual is based more on your belief. And so since Carla was a Christian throughout her life, she uses Christian prayers and Christian devotion as kind of the conduit to reach the one, because that's what she kind of is steeped in, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So then at some point she would then leave her physical body, and Ra would then be kind of come in and start to make words come out of her physical form.
A temporary walk-in.
Yeah, exactly. A temporary walk-in. And that is what allows Don to ask questions. Meanwhile, Jim is meditating and sending light to Carla throughout the duration of the session. He's also supposedly writing things down. I'm not sure exactly how he meditates and writes it all down, but maybe they just... I do know how that actually happens. He doesn't write it down. They use 3 recorders at any given time. So they record in triplicate so that they don't miss anything. I just didn't write that in this specific portion of my notes. So now a thing that then I found later. So I found 2 different descriptions of the Ra channelings. One is from early on, and that's what I just read. That was like from probably some text from the 70s. And then I found one much from more recent times where it was described. And it goes a little bit differently. There's a lot of the same stuff is there, but there are a couple things that change. So in this version, the preparations for contact with Ra begin the night before each session was supposed to be held, when Don, Carla, and Jim would meditate together and go over notes from the previous session. They then would come up with new questions to pose to Ra. At some point, it was discovered that sexual energy transfer lengthens the Ra sessions by increasing Carla's vital energies.
Oh, boy.
So Carla and Jim, having already developed an intimate relationship, would dedicate this transfer to the one creator and to the Ra contact. And on the morning of the sessions, Don, Carla, and Jim would then have a light breakfast, and Jim would give Carla a back massage to stave off arthritic pain, and the rest of the stuff would then condense. So basically, over time, they added Carla getting Carla fucking the night before into the ritual.
Cool.
To kind of help expand the energy at play to communicate with Ra.
Look, it could have been so much weirder. It could have been like they have the third guy there and they do sex stuff in front of him, you know, which would be a little weirder. I mean, it's not illegal. You can do what you want. You're adults.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like
maybe this was the original Challengers situation, you know?
I don't know what that means.
Oh, the movie where... Okay, don't worry about it. People who listen to the podcast will know what the joke is, and it'll be great.
Shit.
So,
Having a boomer moment.
No,
over
it's a
here.
movie about I know
girl
it's a
and
movie,
two guys. Okay.
So
nice. And they
and tennis.
fuck.
So in this case, it's just channeling instead of tennis.
Okay.
So the like you've seen now, the ritual did become a bit more elaborate as time went on. I'm assuming the sexual component, like it says, only started after Jim and Carla got together. Before then, I never saw even like a hint that Don and Carla had any sort of physical relationship, but they just like lived together for a very long time and like worked together. And it's so there you go. So this led to all of these advancements led to the fact that during year 3 of contact with Ra, which would have been 1984, Don was able to ask over 2,600 questions of Ra, which was it was kind of a greater pace than they were setting before then. So I guess fucking helped to get a lot more information out of it.
Sure.
Now in the wiki that I talked about last time, they have the roles of the channeling dictated here, which I think is interesting. So it calls them the questioner, the instrument, and the scribe. And so there's this kind of like ritualistic significance to the roles that like almost felt Triforce-y to me for a second, that I just thought was kind of interesting.
Sure.
Because like those roles also exist outside of this triumvirate of people. And so they specifically will talk about how Carla is one of the most experienced and quality kind of instruments that they've ever had. And like others tried but haven't really been able to reach her level of whatever. So it's like that archetype still, I think, exists in the Law of One channeling methodology. So yeah. I guess just like as a postscript to some of this, Carla lived until 2015. She wrote like a bunch more books. She wrote like a Starseed book about her discovery that she was possibly what they call a wanderer, but is a starseed. Okay. She also wrote a channeling manual that tells, if you want to learn more about her, how she channels and kind of her thoughts on channeling.
I would love to read that, actually.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of these are available pretty readily on their website. So I might have to read more of these later.
Surprising.
They also, the organization channeled like a lot of other people. Like I mentioned, they channeled Jesus, I believe, at some point. That one of their big ones is a being named Quo, Q-U''O, I think. And that seems to be their second most famous channeling, but that's after, I believe that took place in like the 90s, maybe. I didn't look into that one as deeply, but I'm excited to check it out. So I think that basically wraps up what I wanted to cover about these. Do you have any? Is there anything that I didn't hit that you have questions about?
I imagine that like you'd have to dedicate at least its own episode to get into more of the raw material stuff. I mean, I'm so curious about like the personal lives of these people. Yeah. And it sounds like you did what you could to uncover that. But
well, there's one thing that we didn't do that I think would be interesting to look at is, I think I might have, I don't remember if I mentioned this last time, in 1977. So that's before the Raw channelings, but after all three of them are working together and everything. They released a UFO documentary called The Force Beyond, where they're talking heads.
Yeah, you brought that up. I would love to watch that. That would be sick. We should see if we can find it. I believe
it's all on YouTube, so we definitely can watch that.
Perfect.
So maybe for a bonus episode.
Patreon bonus episode, yeah. No, I'm just like, this stuff, it's like, can do like contemporary channelers like channel famous dead people or anything funny like that? Like, are they going around saying like we channeled John Lennon and found out, you know, what the next song he was thinking about writing was all about?
That would be, I don't know if, because I hear with stuff like that, you get that mostly through like ghost box people.
Yeah.
Ghost box people will like get messages from John Lennon.
But if you can channel Jesus Christ, presumably you can channel just dead people on top of alien
you would think
entities,
so.
Or 5D entities or whatever. And then on top of that, it's just like, why do so many of these things end up sexual? I mean, like, I kind of get it. Like, you and I, we fuck before we record podcasts, or we used to.
Yeah.
But it's like, I don't know. It's just strange to...
Well, you got to get your energies in line. Now it doesn't work quite as well when you just jerk off before you record.
I don't know about you, but, like, I don't really feel like I have, like, a plethora of energy after the business. I kind of feel like I got to recharge, have, like, a Gatorade, you know? So it's like...
How are you doing it? So I think that might just be a skill issue.
Okay, maybe.
No.
But, yeah, it's...
Detail at length your fucking stroke game.
All right.
No. Yeah. I do think it's interesting how, because, like, I think that there's just the time when sexual liberation and outsider thought, like,
right,
these kind of alien things and spirituality and all that kind of stuff was kind of new age stuff was coming
free
to be.
Love is in
lot of that came about in the same kind of circles.
Yeah, exactly.
So they're all kind of tied together and are kind of representative of each other. So basically what I'm getting at is, like, UFO cults and fucking a bunch of the same thing, I guess.
It's, you know, it's gone some, like, I don't know if you ever ran into, I don't know. A lot of this stuff just, whenever people bring sex into, I don't think of, like, too many UFO people that we talk about on this show as, like, sexual beings. And I should, because they're humans, but...
Yeah, there's like Love and Saucers.
But Love and Saucers is one, you know, where it's like, oh, right.
It seems like a lot of
some people.
If aliens want to fuck, they go to Brazil. So
maybe that's why they're always in chat telling you to come to Brazil.
Yeah,
it's a double entendre.
That's why Morrissey loves going there so much. So I guess it's time for a big question.
Yeah.
You want to do this big question?
Yeah, I guess so.
Well, you might regret that, because my big question this week is,
oh fuck.
I want to take the opportunity to try to come to the conclusion for the end of our novel that tells the story of our works in the world of weird at large.
Oh, God.
So, who of us has to die to bring about the long-lasting and total peace on Earth?
You can't have me answer that.
I want to put us in the situation that Don and Carla were in back in 1967, trying to hash out the ending to their hit novel, The Crucifixion of Esmerelda Sweeetwater.
I just want to say that if I say, because I'm, like, so selfless, I have to be the one who dies, if you agree with me, that's fucked. First,
I know.
So
that's the thing. I have straight up just tried this. This is the first big question where I think by just an objective state of what this question is, I'm trying to get us to fight.
Oh, Jesus
So
Christ.
if anyone has been missing aggression on the podcast, then here you go.
When have we ever?
So Kyle, why do you think you should live?
Oh, Jesus. Oh, why I should live?
Yeah.
I was just going to say kill me.
So you're taking the Carla route where you're like, you know, I think it makes some sense that I would be the one that died. But do you want to be killed, or do you want to sacrifice yourself?
I want to be killed. I don't want to see it coming, you know?
Okay, so we're going to fridge you so that I can save the world.
Yeah, and, like, here's the thing. My rationale here is, like, just listen to the podcast. Listen to how faulty my memory is. Somebody with a steel trap for a mind has to be able to pass on the stories of this show. And it's not going to be me. I'm going to forget shit. I forget the thing I forget what we talked about like a week ago. Sometimes. So
this week's, when we do two-parters, it's easier because then you just remember we did more of what we're talking about this week last week.
So I guess that's going to have to be my answer. Is somebody's going to have to kill me. So that would then lead me to, Nile, why do you deserve to die?
Why do I deserve to die? I mean, look at me. I think that there's I kind of fall. I've kind of gone over the course of my life between seeing the nobility of sacrifice versus it's actually braver to live for someone than to die for them.
I would be inclined to agree.
Yeah, it's. I think that there's a lot of kind of fake nobility in sacrificing yourself for somebody that is used a lot for like emotional beats in movies. So I guess what I'm getting at is I think you should die too.
Okay. See, this is. I knew this is where this was going, and here's the secret true ending, Nile.
Yeah.
When we're sworn in as the first dual president of the United States,
right? Yep.
And they take us out. It's going to be one shot, both our heads collat, and we're gone together.
Look, that's the way it's got to go. I mean, if much like this podcast started, it should probably end with us drunkenly yelling about Yetis. So
at a podium,
I think that's
with unbelievable amounts of power and influence the world over.
Yeah, kind of. Which Omen movie does he become the president?
Oh my God, I don't know. I haven't seen that one.
Oh, okay. Spoilers.
Holy, that's awesome. Actually, I love that.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think the weirdly starting and ending the podcast on a weirdly poignant political topic.
Good. It bookends it, you know.
Yeah. Oh shit. All right. Before we get a call from the fucking FBI, let's go ahead and move on to some business. So if you want to follow us on social media, we're on Twitter at IGW Podcast.
You can follow us on Facebook.com/ItGetsWeirdPodcast.
And run all your favorite podcatchers from Google Play to Apple Podcasts to Spotify. If you listen to podcasts somewhere, look up It Gets Weird and we're probably there.
Twitch.tv/ItGetsWeird. Do not at me. I know I didn't stream last weekend. I was busy, okay? I get busy sometimes, and I had a busy-ass weekend. And if you want to hear me sass off more, you're going to want to follow us on twitch.tv/ItGetsWeird, because that's where I'll be playing the Elden Ring DLC the next chance I get to sit down and do it. Hopefully this weekend. We'll see. Email us at itgetsweirdpodcast@gmail.com. I think we do owe a listener, Nile, a reaction to their Bigfoot story. So that's we gotta do that on an upcoming episode. Just a reminder. But if you want us to read your emails on the show, go ahead and send them to that email, and we'll check them out. If it's good, it might get on the show. We'll see. Patreon.com/ItGetsWeird. Look, we got a $2 tier. We got a $5 tier. At the $2 tier, you got It Gets Weird TV. We're talking about X-Files Season 2 right now. We're in the back half of that season, and so we're coming to a close there. And then you can vote on what show we watch next. So check it out at the $2 tier. And then we have a $5 tier. There's more bonus episodes at the $5 tier. The back catalog is fucking crazy. So get on that $5 tier, and you get access to my shows, Nile's shows. We do movies sometimes. Garrett used to do a show on there. All kinds of stuff. So check that out. And you also get It Gets Weird TV on top of that. Whether you donate to the $2 tier or the $5 tier, you get access to the main show 2 days early on Friday instead of Sunday. And you get access to the Discord where we're hanging out, chatting with our listeners. You can talk to us directly there. And people are also dropping hot information about various topics in there sometimes. So that's always appreciated. We also have a $1 tier where you don't get anything really. You're just getting the satisfaction of helping out your favorite podcast, giving us $1, giving us a tip. So please check it out. If you can't donate, tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell your congressman all about It Gets Weird Podcast.
All right. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for continuing to support the show. This has been It Gets Weird, and I've been Nile.
And I'm Kyle, signing out.